So Fyter Fest Night 2 kicked off with the 5 Labors of Jericho, Chapter 1. So I guess they're really going all in with this Greek mythology shit. And the stipulation for this match was that Spears was allowed to use a steel chair, but Jericho was not. And towards the end of the match, Tully tried to interfere, but Sammy Guevara came down to even things up and chased Tully off. And there was a good close finish when Spears hit Jericho with a chair and followed up with the C4, but Jericho kicked out. And then Spears tried going for a C4 again, but Jericho slipped out and hit a Judas effect to pin him for the win. And then MJF, who was on commentary at ringside, laid out next week's challenge, which would be a no DQ match against Nick Gage. So that should be super interesting and fun. And then Frankie Kazarian faced off against Luke Gallows with Carl Anderson at ringside, and Kazarian tried going for a crossface chicken wing, but Anderson got involved to allow Gallows to take advantage and pin Kazarian after powerbombing him. And honestly, at this point, I felt like almost every match in AEW has had some kind of interference. I mean, maybe it's due in part to the fact that almost everybody is in some sort of team, which is something else that I criticized. So with everybody on a team, it seems like everybody has someone who's willing to jump in the middle of a match on their behalf. And honestly, I hate this because I just want clean matches where we can see which wrestler is better than the other and we can use those results to build storylines instead of having all these screwy finishes where it's not definite which one is better because somebody got involved. But anyways, after the match, the Good Brothers hit Kazarian with the Magic Killer, and then Omega and Callis came out and hyped up the match with Adam Page and the Dark Order. Page would come out to confront the Elite, and the Dark Order ended up coming out to his aid and sent the Elite packing. And then Brian Cage was interviewed to talk about what happened last week during the FTW World Championship match where he was betrayed by Team Taz. And he said that next week on Fight for the Fallen, Team Taz will have a celebration for their new FTW World Champion Ricky Starks, and Cage says he'll be crashing their party. And then Wheeler Yuta with Orange Cassidy took on Darby Allin with Sting. And honestly, I have to talk about this part of the match where Sting and Orange Cassidy met outside during the match, and they did that Orange Cassidy shtick where they do the weak-ass, nonchalant kicks. And I get that that's sort of Orange Cassidy's thing, but personally, it was really only entertaining and funny the first time. The fact that Orange Cassidy's doing it in just about every match now just makes the shtick lose a lot of its originality and humor. But either way, Darby eventually hit Wheeler with the coffin drop to get the win. And then the Blade came down after the match and knocked Orange Cassidy out with a pair of brass knucks. And then the AEW Women's World Champion Britt Baker faced off against Nyla Rose for the title. And Nyla came pretty close to the title at 2 points when she dropped a knee on Britt as Britt was laid across the top rope, and when Nyla hit a Beast Bomb on Britt. And at both points, Britt kicked out. Nyla tried for the Beast Bomb again, but Britt slipped out, locked in her lockjaw submission, and made Nyla tap out. And then FTR and LAX had a press conference for their match at Fight for the Fallen. They do some basic trash talk. LAX reference FTR's stint in WWE playing patty cake. And then they start getting antsy and they have to be separated by security. And then Tony Schiavone interviewed Andrade El Idolo about what he said last week about wanting to find Death Triangle. But before we even got to that, Andrade announced his new executive consultant, Chavo Guerrero, which in my opinion, if he's replacing Vicky Guerrero, is the perfect replacement. Then Death Triangle came out, and just like I thought, Andrade tried to recruit the Lucha Brothers to form a Latino super stable, which I would kill for, to be able to see Andrade El Idolo, Chavo Guerrero, and the Lucha Brothers on a team. I was never really behind Pac and the Lucha Brothers being on a team, just because it seemed like a weird combo. But Andrade and the Lucha Brothers, it's perfect. It just makes perfect sense. And I think it will eventually happen, because even though the Lucha Brothers refused Andrade's offer this week, like I said in last week's review, I think we will see an Andrade-Pac rivalry over who teams with the Lucha Brothers, which will be so much fun. Then we had a backstage segment with Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Jungle Boy, and basically he said that next week on Fight for the Fallen, they take on Angelico and Private Party of the Hardy family to avenge Marco's stunt. And then QT Marshall and the Factory were interviewed, where QT said he'd apologize to Shivani in the ring next week for dumping his protein shake on Shivani's head. And I can't imagine that will go well, so I'm interested to see who will come out to make the save when QT and the Factory start to threaten Tony, and we'll probably see another QT Marshall feud from this. Then Orange Cassidy took on the Blade after the Blade knocked out Orange Cassidy earlier in the night, and there was a pretty brutal and scary spot when Blade hit Orange with a gut-wrench powerbomb onto the top turnbuckle, and Orange fell out of the ring onto the floor. But Blade tried to use the brass knucks again like he did earlier in the night, but Orange caught Blade this time with an orange punch and pinned him for the win. And then Orange gave Blade a taste of his own medicine by using Blade's brass knucks against him. And then we had our main event, which was the Texas Death Match for the IWGP US Heavyweight title. And seeing as this is a title match, I'm pretty happy because this is exactly what I said I wanted in last week's review, because I honestly just wanted this title to be defended more to increase its legitimacy. But at one point, Mox started stabbing Archer with a fork and busted him wide open, and that kind of shit is exactly what I want out of wrestling. I love brutal, gritty, messy shit like this. I want to see people's eyes get gouged out and limbs get blown off, not whatever this is. Anyways, there were a few more cool spots, like Archer chokeslamming Mox onto the edges of two back-to-back steel chairs, which is always a brutal spot to watch. And then Mox pulled out two boards covered in barbed wire and put them on top of two tables, but Archer caught Mox with the fork and stabbed him a bunch of times as well, and then chokeslammed Mox from the apron through the barbed wire tables, which took Mox out long enough to not answer the ref's 10 count, and Archer was awarded the title. So Archer is the new IWGP US Heavyweight Champion, but he got a challenge right away, this time from New Japan, as Bullet Club member Hikuleo came into the ring and stared down Archer to tease their IWGP US Heavyweight title match next week on Fight for the Fallen. So 3 title matches in a row, which is good because, like I said last week, that title just needs more defenses to it, especially after the 560 some odd reign of Mox that had so little defenses. So we'll see how Fight for the Fallen goes.